Hello and welcome to another, another War Thunder video, obviously, and, by the way, apologies at the start if there's any background noise, because if my mic is picking it up, there are a couple of fans in the background because I'm currently in Georgia and it's 88 something degrees outside, so yeah, apologies about that. But anyway, onto the aircraft. This is the Russian Premium P-39K Airacobra. This is a Tier 2 battle rating 4.0 Russian premium aircraft. With, obviously it's an Airacobra, armed with two 50 caliber machine guns, 4 Browning 7.62mm machine guns mounted in the wings, and of course the one that everyone knows about and the one everyone loves to hate is the M4 or the T9 Oldsmobile 37mm cannon. So, why am I flying an aircraft that that I've not really enjoyed in terms of the cannon? Well, this thing is actually a lot better than it used to be. In fact, the 37mm, as you can see, has gotten a major buff. In fact, the 37mm, it doesn't do more damage, but it does damage more often. And that is pretty much true of all of the American 37mm. I don't know about the Russian 37s because I haven't flown my Yak 9 UP or the UT in quite some time, and I dare not fly the 9T or the 9K, so I can't confirm either of those as well. But what you see in front of you is an Ilyushin 2, and now it doesn't have a wing. That was the 37mm. It took one hit and immediately tore the wing off. So yes, the 37mm is definitely confirmed to be a good gun now. It still has the problem of not having a very good rate of fire, and also having a pretty piss poor muzzle velocity, but and just clearing up the barrel of the 37s there. Go ahead and go for a reload. So yeah, the 37 is much more reliable now, and with this airframe, it is much better. The P-39 Airacobra is by far one of the best low-tier aircraft for the Americans now. There's a Zero, killed a pilot with machine guns. Not only that, but this thing is actually good at taking down bombers now. And for those of you who haven't seen my video on the P-39K before, I'm not really surprised. It was a while since I made a video on this aircraft. It's been at least a couple of months since I've flown this thing. So the P-39N, or the P-39K, which this is based off of the N variant, but anyway. The P-39K is, well, it has an interesting history with me in War Thunder. The P-39 Airacobra series of aircraft has always been a series that I've liked, but I've also not really want to fly. I've never really want to fly, but I adore. And the reason for that is because the Airacobra series is some of the only American aircraft that combines speed, maneuverability, and rate of climb all into one aircraft, and, while at the same time, has hard-hitting armament. Now, obviously, you guys are going to immediately point to the P-47. Well, the P-47 has hard-hitting armament and speed, but it doesn't have anything in the way of maneuverability or climb rate, especially not compared to an Airacobra. The Mustang, once again, has speed and climb rate, but it doesn't have maneuverability or... Well, unless you're talking about the Cannon Mustang, it doesn't have armament. And the Cannon Mustang does have maneuverability. It does have all of those 4 categories. But the P-39 is one of the few aircraft that the Americans get access to that combines all 4 of those categories. And, well, actually no, a 5th category, energy retention. It is one of the few aircraft that has energy retention, hard-hitting armament, climb rate, speed, and maneuverability. There are very few American aircraft that have all 5 of those attributes. This is one of them. And that is the reason why I love flying the P-39. Anything that you cannot outrun, you can either outclimb or outmaneuver. Anything you can't outmaneuver, you can outrun. It really is one of those few aircraft that is capable of being a significant threat to any aircraft in the sky. Not only that, but this thing's 37mm makes it ideal for taking down bombers, as we're about to see with that Peshka over there in the distance. And by the way, just a little bit of, just a tidbit of information. You know that Peshka 8 that we saw earlier in the match? Well, I'm about to go and engage it. This Peshka 8 has been spotted several times and has had nobody go after it. It has bombed all 3 of our air bases and has taken no damage in return. Not only that, but he is currently down on the deck at about... there you go, there he is. You get about 2,000 meters. Now, keep in mind, this aircraft has sustained no damage this entire match, and he has taken out all 3 of the auxiliary air bases. That was 137mm hit. Now, granted, it hit the inboard engine, but that was one hit from a 37mm cannon, and it took him down. That was a Peshka 8, like I said. Those things are very much known for their durability, and I just took it out in one hit. So yeah, the 37mm is very dangerous. Even to something as hard to shoot down as a Peshka. And by the way, the Yak 7 down there, I did not even notice him. I thought he was a lot farther away than he actually was. I don't think I was even looking at him. I was actually looking at a KI-45. I didn't even notice this guy was here. Why does it matter? He's dead now. Oh, and by the way, this is just absolutely hilarious what's about to happen here. So, see Hurricane 1C, shoot his wings off, and the I-185 crashes into the wreck of the Hurricane. And by the way, there are armored cars driving up that cliff, yes. So, what are the main problems with the P-39 Airacobra? Well, the main problem with the P-39 is that it's a flying fuel canister. It really is. Another problem with it is that the 37mm has a very poor muzzle velocity. And a fourth problem, or a third problem, is that this aircraft has it has three different calibers of ammunition. Now, the 50 calibers and the 7.62s, and that was pretty much my last kill for the match right there. But anyway, the 50 calibers and the 7.62s pretty much have the same muzzle velocity, and therefore the 7.62s and the 50 calibers are basically going to be on target and hitting at the same time. It's not going to be in the same place, but it's going to be very close. The 37mm, by contrast, it has a muzzle velocity more along the lines of an NS-23. An NS-23 23mm cannon that the Russians get. Either that or something along the lines of an MG-151, which is a 20mm cannon. The 37mm, because of its poor muzzle velocity, it makes it very difficult. Unless you're at very close range, the 37mm is always going to be ahead, and the 50 calibers are always going to be behind. So what this basically means in practice is, while I'm shooting, for example, at that P-51, the aiming reticle is only accounting for the 37mm. It's not accounting for the machine guns. So I'm pulling lead for the 37mm, but the 50 cals are always going to be behind the target because they have a higher muzzle velocity than the 37mm. Therefore, they don't need as much lead. So what this means in practice is that the 50 calibers, because the way that the aiming reticle works, which, by the way, if you don't know, the aiming reticle always accounts for the largest caliber gun that you have currently loaded. So whatever caliber of gun that you currently have on your plane, whatever the largest caliber that has ammunition in the gun is, that is what the lead indicator is going to account for. So, for example, when the 37mm has ammunition, the lead indicator is always accounting for the 37. But when it goes out, when the 37mm runs dry, then it starts going for the 50 calibers. It accounts for the 50 cals. And when the 50 cals are dry, then it accounts for the 7.62s, generally. But with this aircraft, something interesting about this plane is that the 50 cals and the 7.62s they fire in tandem. You can't fire them separately. So the lead indicator will only account for the 37 and the 50 cals, because those are the largest caliber guns on the aircraft. So anyway, what the muzzle velocity of the 37 means in practice, like I said, when the 37mm has ammunition, the 37mm is going to be the only thing that really does any damage unless you're at very close range. So if you're shooting at like 500 meters or farther, the 37mm is always going to be the one that does damage. The 50 cals are falling behind. The 50 cals are actually going beneath the target, while the 37mm is going to the target. And the reason for that is because the 50 cals rather are going above, and the 7.62s are going above, but the 37 is dropping towards the target. And the reason for that is because the 50 cals don't need as much lead as the 37, like I said. However, if you're down at like 300 meters or lower, the 37 and the 50 cals are all going to be at about the same distance, and the reason for that is because of the slowing down of the ballistic properties of the 37mm shell and the machine guns. It's kind of the same way that the BF-109 G6, G14, and G10 work when they have the 30mm MK108. With the MK108, if you get at close range, like say 300 meters, the 13mm, the machine guns on the BF-109 G6, 14, and 10 are all going to be impacting the target at the same time as the MK108. Now you're not going to notice it because whatever the 108 hits, it vaporizes. But the 13s and the 108s are both going to be hitting at about the same time. And the reason for that is because of the speed, the initial speed that those shells have when they leave the barrel. The ballistic, because of the weight of the 37mm shell, or the 30mm shell, in the case of the 108, combined with the relatively slow muzzle velocity as it is, causes the shell to lose a lot more speed over distance than something like a machine gun. And because of this, the initial speed of the shell is the initial speed of the T9 Oldsmobile cannon, these 37mm shells, is very comparable to the machine guns. However, once it gets to about 500 meters, the speed of the shell is drastically reduced, and it's already starting to fall out of the sky. Meanwhile, the 50 cals and the machine guns are still going. So, for those of you who are wondering why in your P39 your machine guns are never doing any damage, but your 37mm is always hitting, that's why. Especially at range. So, anyway, fun little match in the P39K, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys next time.